Hello and welcome everyone to the next episode of Ask Dr. Zaino Live. I appreciate y'all being here. We have people that are still flooding in. You can see, if you can see the count there on our live chat below the video. We appreciate you being here and thank you for questions that are already there. We're going to get to those in just a second. First, let me tell you about our social media links. Right below this video, you'll see the like button, the G+ button, tweet, share, pin, all those social media links. We want you to hit those. If you haven't, you'll see if you hit it, it'll actually turn a different color. So make sure that you've hit all 5 of those and share those with your colleagues so that they know we're on and they can get the information as well. And then when you scroll all the way down to the bottom, we have a new link there. We'll be talking about that today because we're going to change up the layout of the Ask Dr. Zaino show just a little bit. We're still going to hit some questions and answer some of your questions and concerns, but we also want to add just a more in-depth training portion to the Ask Dr. Zaino show. So a lot of the people who are on that either don't ask a question or they're waiting for someone else to ask the question, maybe they're a little shy or whatever, we want to make sure that it's absolutely beneficial for everyone, and we decided to do that. We do need to dive into some very specific niche training, and so stay tuned, stay on the show the entire time, and you're going to get big benefits from that. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the man of the hour, Dr. Chris Zaino. How are you, man?
Hey, Dr. Tabor, what's going
on? It's going good. It's going real good.
All right, good. Yeah, I'm excited tonight. And the reason why we changed the format slightly is because a lot of times when you ask a question, you know, the problem is actually almost in the question. It's like you're asking the question, trying to look for a solution, but that was actually the wrong question to ask for the issue that you're having. You follow what I'm saying? So sometimes I might ask a question. It's like, well, no, the real problem is this. And if I answer that question, it's still not solving your problem. And so we all been there. So I want to make sure I can now give you guys some training to actually get you the things that matter. Because you'll realize that, you know, when like we'll hit a little, I think we'll do a little dinner training today or outside talk training, because I'm thinking, like, you know, questions that are in scarcity. Like I had a family, they came in and I had, you know, their care plan was over 3,000 and they had to go home and think about it. And so you're so worried about the one family. But if you did a talk and you have 10 families coming in, and you wouldn't be worried about the one family, right? I mean, because you're in scarcity mode and neediness mode. So when someone's like, well, what happens to that one family that didn't sign? I'm like, well, I got 15 others that are coming in. So it's not my health problem, it's their health problem. And they're going to spend it in medicine, and you know, neglecting never heals a problem. So the question wasn't, what do I say to that family? The question is, where can I get another 10 families? So we're going to teach you how to get you know, 80 new patients a month, 60 new patients a month solves all of your problems. It really does, because you're not in scarcity and you're not needy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And yeah, that was one of the questions actually that was in the live chat, and that's absolutely right. Is that some people are just going to, you know, not work out properly. Here, let me get to another question that we have that will kind of lead us into some dinner training, because I know a lot of the dinner and a lot of the importance is in the mindset, but a lot of that happens also on day 3, which is the answer to this question. It says, our ideal patients who get the best results form. We've created ours, and we're wondering when you actually give that to the patient during the process. He says he's been here, watched all the training videos, also on the dinner, the dynamic dinner, but he wants to see when that comes into play. He's not been able to find it.
Yeah, well, I talked about it in the masterpiece report of findings, and then their day 3, the day 3 they come in for their really first walkthrough of the office. That's when we sit down before they wobble, before they get adjusted, before they do the rehab. You know, this is when they're helping people, you know, filling out the names, and then this is where they get it. And we review that with them. Our ideal patients, boom. So that's kind of our credo or manifesto. We could do it 2 ways. We do a day 3, or sometimes we give it to them on the doctor's report night in their folder. You can do either way. It's going to work either way. There's no rhyme. You know, it's as long as they get it in their hands and they understand that they're entering in like this special club the elite club, because not many people are going to have the amount of health and outrageous life that they will have with chiropractic in their life. So they have to understand, with that comes responsibility and privileges. With those privileges come, a discipline to really help other people. So they kind of know, hey, I'm part of this team now. This is what, if I want to get the best results, this is the type person, or these are the type people, the characteristics and skills and mindset people have that do get what they want, which is results.
Right on. Good answer. And then one more question here is also related to some outside talks, even the dinner maybe. So when you go into a business or organization and you have a specific amount of time to do the talk or the dinner talk, let's say 15 to 20 minutes, how do you shorten the talk? What parts do you keep? What parts do you remove? Any suggestions there?
Right on. Well, this is why you need to master the dynamic dinner talk. A lot of people, they get the dynamic dinner, and and because we get questions like that, I know you get bits and pieces. You see how Carla calls the people. You kind of see how we get the names. You kind of watch my talk and kind of get some things from it. And your talk's different every time you go in there. So you really didn't master it first. You got to master it. Then you can make it your own. So when I go in there, if I master it, because I have the talk mastered, I know the bullet points to pull off. So if I have 15, 20 minutes, I know I'm going to go right into, top killers, explain the nervous system, and right into the close. And I have my team. See, when you master your talk, you know exactly the amount of time you need to land the plane. I call it landing the plane. That's the closing it, right? Closing meaning landing the talk, closing the talk, having them fill out the form in the talk, all those things. So I know that's going to take me 4 minutes and 26 seconds every single time. People are like, why not 4:30? It takes me 4 minutes and 26 seconds. It's been timed. And I time it. I got it down to that. So what I do is when I'm doing a talk and I know I have 15 minutes, no matter where I am, I need, Shannon will raise her hand or do something in the back. And I know I got 5 minutes. And so when I have 5 minutes, if I'm talking about the nervous system, I could shut that down in 30 seconds or less and then land the plane. And so this is why this is about, you got to take it to the next level. Listen, you're asking these questions, you're on this program because you want to be the best influencer, chiropractor, business owner, and have the best practice over what a lot of other thousands of chiropractors don't have, right? So you want more and you want a better practice or a better quality of life or better opportunities than the normal. So you can't do the same thing that the normal people are doing. The normal person stands over it, buys the product, puts it on the shelf, doesn't apply it, doesn't master it, doesn't take it that 1 extra percent. So you might know the close, but then I'll take it to say, well, do you know exactly the time it is? And you'll be like, well, no. Well, do you need to know that? So that, well, see, it's just 1 extra percent will change everything. So when that situation comes, I know exactly how to do it. So this is where practicing, professionals, practice between your performances, and professionals always practice. So again, if you want the results that no one else gets, you got to be willing to do the extra things that no one else does. And that's why it's right in there. You get that D square. That's why Dr. Tabor, we got the video, we got the MP3, we got it dictated out. We gave you all types of visual reading. You have it there exactly for you to nail it down. And the only reason why you're not doing it and getting the results is because you're doing it at 50%. And yes, it's better than you were doing, but man, come on. What else are you going to do with your life? Right? What else? This is what you do. And this is what we're talking about today. It's the most important, most influential, most community changing event you could do is your chiropractic talk, going to someone's work. Without that, you're a physical therapist. You're just like any other chiropractor with the sign on the wall. No one knows the difference.
Yeah.
You really get to go old school and teach the principle what chiropractic is. And it's nice. It's the most, by hands down, the most important thing you could do in your practice. It's the 10% that yields the 90, the 80-20 rule. I think it's the 10% that yields 90% of your results. 100%. Nice.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And I think this is a good transition into maybe the training, or at least you know, what I would like you to do, Dr. Zaino, is share a little bit of the story on how that happened. And let me introduce the link that we have down below. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of this page, you'll see the image of the video, and that's the first video in the Dynamic Dinner training series. If you click on that link, it'll take you to dynamicdinner.com, and you'll see in this first video, when you enter your name and your email, I got to go with Dr. Zaino to kind of a history of how his office began, and we drove around, we documented in the video, you'll notice it there, and he goes to his old practice and his new practice. He talks about how the Dynamic Dinner came about and all the other things that he tried. And I just want to encourage every single one of you, even if you've seen it already, go back and watch that video. It's inspirational. And then it's also, you know, it's got a lot of great information that's going to help you when you do either start these dinners, or if you're already doing them, you know, continue to do them. And every time I watch that video, I get something different out of it. But if you want to maybe share a little bit of that, Dr. Zaino, I think that might be a good idea.
I mean, that really came out better than we ever thought it would be. You know, there was a one camera. Tabor was just one camera. We just drove around and just it was just like all B-roll. And what I want to talk about, Dr. Tabor said a good thing. If you say, well, I already saw that, listen, Brian Tracy said it best, and probably many other successful people that said it, that repetition is the master of skill. Like repetition. You know, that repetition is how you master skill, or any type of information. He had a thing, and same thing here. Use your car as a university on wheels. You know, so we go to school because they would learn stuff, but like, you know, the average person is in their car 400 to 1,000 hours per year, and that's equivalent to about 20 to 24 40-hour weeks of school. And you could learn anything you want. So in your car, whether it be self-improvement or personal development or self-esteem development or chiropractic audio, like you literally could have a seminar every day. So, but the thing is, you know, I have some audios, and you know, I hear them 6, 7, 8, 10 times, to the point where I could still quote very long paragraphs and you know, bits of different audios that we heard, because when you hear it not once but twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, then you master that skill and that information. And that also is the reason why, you know, my dinner talk is very similar to my day one new patient talk, is very similar, or it's exactly half of my doctor's report talk, you know, which is very similar to the dinner talk they go back to again. So the reason why we have these things is because repetition. I want them to hear the same thing over and over again so they can master the information. It really seeps down into their mind and subconscious so they understand it. So that's why, I mean, watch that 7 times until you could literally know exactly what I'm going to say, and then you know you got it. So that goes to even books. You know, we read a book once. So when I read books, like I'm reading Think and Grow Rich. The thing's been around for 100 years. But you know what? That's one. I have a list of books that I will reread over and over again. So I'm rereading that. So why? Because every time I reread it, it might be the 3rd time I'm reading it. You know, you're in different phases of your life. It speaks to you differently. When you watch that video, it's going to speak to you differently. And that's why I watched that. I mean, that really came out great. Tabor did a great job with that, and that's why repetition is the master of skill. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think at least I get this from that video. I'll never forget when we did that, was you sharing the story of being a very nervous speaker, you know, and I remember we stopped at the country club, and we documented that, where it was like you would hide your notes inside your book or whatever it was. And I can only imagine that, you know, I felt like that too at the beginning, but that's probably when people first start to do the dinner workshop, that might be something that holds them back, is that fear. And if you don't mind sharing that transformation, was it that day at the concert? Is that since then, were you more bold when you spoke, or was it just that purpose that drove you?
Well, I think it was twofold, Dr. Tabor and everybody. Is like, I hated feeling nervous. You understand? Yeah. I hated that feeling. Yeah. I hated looking in the friggin' book. I hated it. I hated leaving thinking I didn't move anybody. So I just got really pissed off about that. So because it made me feel like a failure, it made me, yeah, people enjoyed what I had to say. I was a good presenter. I was a, you know, I was like anybody else at the Rotary. You know, they ate their food, they listened to this guy speak, but I didn't move anybody. And it sucked. I'm like, man, I'm not influencing people. But I had a good talk that I read, kind of. And so
Yeah.
I really, because I did a talk, I was using that as a crutch because
Mm.
I was afraid that I would miss something or I would forget something. And I realized that, you know, these people don't know what I'm going to say. They don't know. Like I tell you, Tabor, right? Hey, listen, don't worry. They like when you're training, I like, no one's going to know what you're about to say next. So if you forget something, no one knows that. And
Right.
then, yeah, at the pavilion, well, no, all the pavilion did, and that was, you'll see in the video, when it wasn't really a transformation. It was just really another moment that really showed me that I was doing a shitty job of influencing people. Like my
Mm.
truth, I wanted more than anything else for people to be well and understand health through the practice of chiropractic, the principle of it. And you know, your biggest values come from your biggest voids. So because I got sick, and when you're really sick, guys, or you have a child that was sick, Tabor, like, do you know what happens? That biggest void of your life, the loss of health of you or your loved one, after
Hmm.
that journey makes that void your biggest value, right? So
Yeah.
my biggest value became health for not only
Yeah.
myself, my family, but for people. So here, my biggest value in life was health for myself and health for people around me because I don't want them to go through that. So if that's my biggest value, but I cannot get people to get that, it was
Yeah.
very frustrating. I felt personally very tough on myself as a failure. So then when I went to that concert and I saw 10,000 people, I'm thinking, I failed these 10,000 people. Well, how did I fail? And because I wasn't able to influence them, or I spoke to them and it just didn't hit them, and it didn't get through the skull, or it didn't get to their heart. So I was
Mm.
thinking, well, why? Is because I was sitting there like a robot and I was giving a presentation and I wasn't being really myself. So one day I was just sick of it, and you get so upset, you go sick, and you almost go a little crazy, you crack, you go nuts, and then you basically say, you know what, I'm going to share that that, you know what, I felt like a failure. I want you people to understand this. And then all of a sudden you're out there to share because it's all about them and it's not about you. Because me being scared or nervous or being a presenter or have to read my notes, because it was all how I was presenting to the public versus it's all about the public. They need to hear this message. I got rid of my notes because I realized these notes are holding me back. So I studied them. I knew my bullet points. We talked about bullet points, right? So
Yep.
bullet points, I used to memorize. We do the same thing. We used to memorize every word like a script, like an actor.
Hmm.
But an actor, you know, they memorize the script, but then we went into memorizing bullet points. Like I know A flows into B, this point flows into this point, but I just have to flow into the points. What's in between the lines, it's like bumper bowling. You know, I could go here, I could go there, but just as long as I'm hitting the next point, that freed me up to kind of be myself and just make sure I hit these points. So I knew the points I had to hit, but then I could kind of share really me without having to be polished, without having to be, because you know what, because I realized the polished version of me, dressed up in a nice suit, you know, very good diction, the performer, the actor. But I was doing that because I thought, you know, you watch performers and now speakers and they're very polished. But that wasn't, I was just getting the golf clap and I wasn't moving people. No lives were being changed. And so when that just, I got so mad and so disappointed at my results and how things were going that I said, listen, I just need to own my points and I need to go there and tell people what's on my heart because it's for them. So I see that's the thing. I thought it was all for them, but I was so caught up in the rules, what to say, what I'm wearing, what are people thinking about me? Is my hair okay and fixed? Are they judging me? It was all about their perception of me. But when I gave that up, I said, listen, my biggest value is health for everybody in my community and their family. And you know what? They need to understand that. So it was like I was just, it was all for them. And
Yeah.
then, I mean, literally, Tabor, it was like, then that's when I, you know, asked that pastor, hey, can I speak at your church? And he's like, yeah, do that. And then we filled 2 Sundays, and that's when someone would be like, well, what happened? You know, a
Yeah.
bomb went off. What's going on? And you know what? I kind of made a decision. You know, kind of, that's when I started wearing my heart on my sleeve a little bit more. And
Yeah.
then things exploded. But things exploded not because the words were different. It was just, you know what, I wasn't worried about their perception of me anymore. I wasn't worried about rejection.
Yeah.
because I was getting rejected, I was getting more rejection with them worrying about what I think they were thinking of me. Then so I was
Mm.
like, how I can't do worse than I'm doing now. So
Yep.
shit, you're like, screw this. I'm sick of this bondage of being self-conscious.
Yep.
And let me just do what I feel in my heart. And that's when this whole evangelizing the principle came about. And that became the most effective thing in my life.
Well, I think that's important because a lot of times, I may have even mentioned this too, was that we think the first step is to schedule the dinner, or we think the first step is to gather names and do phone calls. But really, there's a reason why the first training video in the Dynamic Dinner series is about mindset, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Probably the most important thing, whether you're doing an outside talk or a dynamic dinner, is that you have that mindset where you're coming from, like where Dr. Zaino said, that's the only thing that changed was his perception, and his mindset was not the words. It was coming from a different intent where it was about the community now instead of about the business and then just the doctor and just the new patients, right?
Right.
We have a question here that it does go really well with this what we're talking about. So it says, let's see. Well, I lost it. Okay, I do have a few questions as a new graduate. You can choose to answer if you like. With the dinner, Zaino's personal testimony is amazing. Mine is that I've always lived with the chiropractic principle. Should I use my own or another one?
Use your own. That's the ultimate testimony.
Yeah,
I remember Dr. James Judge, he had that same thing. He's like, I've been a chiropractic baby, and I've never, and I'm like, dude, there's your story. I mean, you've been a superhuman. You never took a medication in your life. You're not vaccinated. You've got adjusted since you were born. Your family's from like clearly you live the right equation to have
yeah.
abundant, amazing health. And then he looks the part. He looks great, right? So
Mhm.
it's like, dude, that's the best story at all. I mean, so I say, crap, how do I add that? So I talk about my kids. I show an X-ray of my son, not in the dinner, but in my report. I'm like, this is my most important X-ray. I go, because
Yeah,
this is my son. He's going to be a black belt at 9 years old in October. He's in karate every day for hours, rolling around, getting hit in the neck. I go, but as a father, what do I feel will make me the greatest dad is not what I leave him in money or toys I get him, is that, he's healthy. And that's the only thing I care about. And the fact that I could see in that picture and know that he has health because he has a beautiful arc in his eye. And I know he's been adjusted since birth. He's never took a medication. He's 9.5 years old. He's equivalent. He's almost in seventh grade at 9. He'll probably graduate high school at 12 or 13. And then I proudly say, how many of you know a kid like that?
yeah,
And they say none of them do. Grandparents, their grandkids aren't like that. They're on meds. I'm not saying my child is better than anybody, but you know what? He had the best chance by having chiropractic since the day he was born. The difference between my child and your child is not innate intelligence. It's not their brains versus his brains. It's that he's been interference free since birth. And look at the difference in just 9 years. Now, how about what happens when he's 49, 40 more years of that? How much better would his life be? So they really see, holy cow. So that is the greatest testimony, is that I live this,
yeah,
versus my loud testimony. So he's saying that Dr. Zaino has a loud testimony, right? The colon removed, got to get removed, chiropractic saved his life. But the silent miracle, the silent testimony is much more important. I never had to go through that. I never had to take a medication. That means my body was healing and functioning exactly the way every parent would ever want their child's body to be. And I'm living proof of that. So you took theory, because people say, well, that's a theory that you remove the interference. No, it's this. I'm not talking about you. And who's ever asked that question? She's like, this is not theory. This is a law. And
yeah,
if you say this law is bullshit, or like if you say whatever, if you're skeptical of this law, then you're saying my entire life is a lie. How about that one? That's boom. Like, because they're going to say, so his entire life, so you're saying my son's entire life was a fluke. It was a total lie. It was smoke and mirrors. And that's crazy. Of course it's not. So if anything, every chiropractic baby out there that's been adjusted, and you don't have a story because you had amazing health. You have the chiropractic story. That is
Yeah.
the story. Mine's not the story. You have the story. And so, man, I'm jealous of that. That's powerful. My son has an advantage that I'll never be able to have, and that's because
It's
he got
very
adjusted.
powerful. We as chiropractors, we're jaded because our friends are healthy, our families are healthy, but like we should be excited to share that principle and
Yeah.
that story if you grew up with it, because most people didn't, to the point that I've had a weird week so far. I had one gentleman that came to my office straight from the emergency room. You could tell his lifestyle, just he didn't understand the wellness lifestyle at all. And he had came in and he said, well, I can no longer take pain medications because I was vomiting blood and I was defecating blood because I was taking too much ibuprofen, and because I'm in pain all the time. And it was like that's his lifestyle, was just he just took ibuprofen, took like 4 every 2 hours, and it tore him up. Then the very next new patient that came into my office was an older gentleman, and he said, I came here because I just came from a funeral, and a guy who's been a good friend of mine for a long time died from taking too much ibuprofen. He started vomiting blood, and he died. Over-the-counter medication. And you don't see this, you don't hear this on any of the news programs. Nobody ever tells you. But can you imagine if you ever even heard of 2 people dying from an adjustment, right? But they would shut chiropractic down. It would be all over the news. But yet an over-the-counter medication is killing people, so much so that 2 of them came into my office this week. And so, sharing that, and then sharing, look at how different life could be when I grow up in this principle. And that's actually a very exciting, very powerful story in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Taylor, because that's been a question. Like, I don't have, well, either I don't have a story because I'm a chiropractic baby and never had a
Right.
problem, or I practice. I just don't have I became a chiropractor because I love the principle, but it didn't save my life. Even
Yeah.
better. I mean, like, it's like you got to understand that's way more powerful
It's beautiful.
than I could say. I had 7 brain tumors in chiropractic, and they all went away.
Mm-hmm.
And people could, it's just, that's great, but I think it's way more powerful to be like, okay, I was totally healthy, I never had issues,
I
like,
agree.
because for me to get 7 brain tumors, I had to be a very sick person because I didn't know about the principle of chiropractic. So when you want to know about it as soon as possible, who wants to know about it from birth? Oh, everybody. So that's
Yeah.
urgency for me. It's like, wow, I'm 50 years old. In your audience, I'm 50 years too late. I need to get started immediately,
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're getting into the half-hour mark, and so we need to start winding it down. But for those of you who are just getting here, I want to remind you, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page here at chirothoughtleaders.com/ask-dr-Zaino, you'll see that link. I want you to go ahead and click on that link. It'll take you to www.dynamicdinner.com. Put your name and email in there and watch that first video. It'll take you to the story of how Dr. Zaino created an amazing chiropractic office in the Woodland, Texas. And so, Dr. Zaino, in closing, it seems like today's theme is really the mindset of the dinner. And as we go, and we'll still answer questions from people in the Ask Dr. Zaino show, but we're also going to be doing some very specific training on the dynamic dinner process, how to get more leads, how to get more people to the dinner, what to say, how to prepare for that dinner. And I think it's just going to be hugely, hugely valuable over the next few weeks. And I want to encourage everybody to be on here live and watch the replays as well. But if you want to kind of give us some closing remarks, maybe a few things about the mindset that will set us up for next week's.
Well, I think that video below, you'll really see the mindset there because you'll see the inner turmoil, because there's always an inner battle. I think next week we'll go over the most common mistakes when people do present or they do talk.
Gotcha.
Because getting the names is easy, guys. That's it. Because the thing is, well, we're thinking like, what's going to be better? Should I tell you how to load your dinner up, which we will, but if you have a dinner of 40 people and you go in there like I did, and you're kind of rusty, you quite don't know where you're going to go, you're nervous, it's going to be 40 people saying, hey, that's a great information, right? So I think I'd rather have you on purpose and on fire and know how to say it. Then I put you in a room of 2,000, and you'll move everybody. And I think so, because you only have one shot at that person. You only see that person one time. And so that's another urgency thing. So I really think before we fill the dinner, we got to just be prepared to unleash the principle to the community. So we'll talk about that next week.
Awesome. Beautiful. And I just want to, there are a lot of people, giving us some love out in the chat, telling us great job. They watch it every week and they really appreciate it. And I just want you guys to know we do appreciate your kind words there. And I personally, I really enjoy being on here. I'm blessed that Dr. Zaino allows me to be on here, and we have a lot of fun with it. So awesome. Well, I hope everybody has a wonderful evening. Thank you again for being on here live, and stay tuned. Next week's going to be power packed. In the meantime, click the link below this video, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Yes.